Hey mathematicians, today we're going to talk about how to calculate percent error. So you have probably heard this year that percents are always out of 100. So we're going to use some ratios to help solve some problems. Before the storm moved in, I asked for all the teachers and faculty at Bernheim to predict how much snowfall we would get. For the sake of accuracy, I said at the airport. And when it all was said and done, the airport received 5.9 inches of snow and ice and rain for the storm. So you guys are going to calculate how wrong we all were because nobody actually guessed correctly. So you can see here I have percent over 100 because we know percentages are always out of 100. And to calculate percent error, we're looking at the ratio of the amount of error to the actual correct amount. So Miss Ackerman guessed that there would be 2 feet of snow. So the first thing I need to do is convert that to inches. So that's 24 inches. And I need to figure out how much she was off by. So I'm going to find the amount of error. I'm going to do 24 minus 5.9 to find out how far off her guess was. And her guess was off by 18.1 inches. Now I can set up a ratio of error to correct. So the amount of error was 18.1. And the correct amount of snow, the actual amount of snowfall, was 5.9. So that's error over correct. Now my goal is to figure out a percent. So I need to know not out of 5.9, but out of 100. So let's set up a proportion equals something, you can put an X or whatever, over 100. Now, there are lots of ways that we can solve this. The easiest way, in my opinion, is just to do error divided by actual amount and then multiply by 100. What that will tell me is, if I do 18.1 divided by 5.9, that'll tell me whatever I need to multiply 5.9 by to get to 18.1. And that number is it's a long decimal, 3.06779. And it goes on some more after that, but we'll cut it off there. Now, when I multiply by 100, so that was just my division. That means if I take 5.9 and I multiply it by 3 point blah, 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 I'll get to 18.1, which makes sense because 6 times 3 is 18, right? So to go from the whole amount to the error amount, I would need to multiply by 3.06 blah, blah, blah. To go from the correct percent to the error percent, I would also need to multiply by 3.06 blah, blah, blah. So we divided and got 3 point whatever. Now we're going to multiply by 100 and find out what our percent error is. Well, when you multiply by 100, you're just sliding your decimal over. So we're going to call that 306 point, and we'll round to the hundredths place, so we'll call it 78%. So Miss Ackerman's error was 306.78% error. We could also repeat and do that again with another faculty member. Mr. Tingle's guess was 8.25 inches. So remember, the first step is to find out how much error there was. So we will do some subtraction. And we'll do 8.25 minus 5.9. So his total amount of error was 2.6. His guess was 2 6/10 of an inch off from the actual snowfall. So then we set up our ratios, right? We put the amount of error on top. And then we put the correct amount on bottom. And then our goal is to find out, well, what if it were out of 100? Because percents are always out of 100. So just like before, I'm looking for whatever number I can multiply to get from denominator to numerator. Well, how do I do that? first by dividing 2.6 divided by 5.9. And that gets me 0.4407. Yeah, we'll call that good. And now we're going to multiply by 100. So that looks like moving our decimal over 2 to the right. So that gets us, we'll go to the hundredths place again, 44.07%. So we can see that Mr. Tingle's percent error was 44.07% error. So I'm going to give you the rest of the guesses from the staffalty, and your job is to figure out who had the most accurate guess and what their percent error was. When we come back, I'm going to have a prize for the staffalty member who was the closest, or staffalty members who were the closest. So calculate your error. You can use Canva's dry erase, or you can use your own paper and pencil. Whatever you want to do is fine. Desmos is free game. You may use the Desmos scientific testing calculator. And please get that submitted before we return to school.